Hello and welcome back to another episode of Briggs and Co, where we are leaving average for Joe. This week I brought on the incredible Kristina Botelho. I mean, you're in for a treat with this one. This woman is superhuman, I swear, when it comes to baking bread. No, she also does that really wonderfully. Breaking boundaries. This gal shows us how it's done. She became a mom at 16 years old, going back to school while raising kids, starting her own Quiznos franchise, setting her eyes on a corporate position within Quiznos, and not quitting till she got it, all by the age of 25 years old. She then was ready for another challenge, and so she decided to branch off to work for companies like Booster Juice and consulting work for Business Link. She then took the leap of faith and launched her own health conscious restaurant called KB and Co, which she is famously known for today. Thank you, KB, for coming on, for chatting with me, for sharing laughs, memories, some tips and advice for those that are looking into the business world or just simply branching off into things that are unknown that might scare them. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with you. Listeners, enjoy. By all means, just share a little bit about
Okay, well,
yourself.
essentially, to keep it like very close notes and kind of to the point, I am the founder and CEO and janitor and all the things, mostly janitor of a plant-based quick serve franchise concept that I created in 2016. Started here in Edmonton. First location was downtown Edmonton, and then 2 years later grew just sort of outside of the downtown area into the suburbs over in Windermere with my second location,
Mm.
and essentially grew over the past 9 years. It'll be 9 years this year to 8 locations. Grew to 8 locations and now currently have six. So there were two that just didn't didn't work out, we'll say. And happy to dive into that at some point. But
Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
just restaurant.
And now
Go ahead.
you're building a new something,
Yeah,
correct?
I had started like the Bravehearts Collective. Yeah, I had started a collective just through a call to action through my personal Instagram when I had closed down my Kelowna location last spring.
Mm.
I was in a very fragile state. It was probably, I mean, I feel like the amount of times I say it's the worst thing I've ever gone through. I'm getting tired of saying that. But at the time it was, I would say, yeah, it tops probably one of the worst things business wise that I had gone through. And I didn't have anybody in my immediate circle or really in any circle of mine that I could talk to um, that maybe went through the same thing or has experienced close to closing. I just felt really alone and kind of put out this like, hey, does anyone care to like sit around in a circle and talk about our feelings? Because I am really struggling. And I actually just posted it through an Eventbrite and it just sold out in 4 hours. It was just my first event was 20 women where we came together at my home here and I just, I started off just sharing what was going on for me and just
Were you
I
nervous? I don't even know how you would
yeah,
approach
oh,
that.
I was well, I guess it happened so quick, and then I was like, "Oh, shit. Oh, it's gonna happen," and people wanna come and then what do I say to everybody? Like, how do I, like, guys, how do I start off? Yeah, oh, no, I
That's what I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, oh my God, wait, this is real.
yeah,
Welcome.
oh, totally. We sat around, we had this beautiful little picnic decor set up on the rooftop patio. We sat around in a around this table and I fed them and then, and I could feel myself like delaying. Like my one girlfriend was like, "Okay, maybe start chatting." And I'm like, people are talking, I'll just like
You know what? Forget it. You never mind.
that is definitely had crossed my mind that day. I'm like, "What am I even doing?" I think that this like there's imposter syndrome is such a big thing, and that's what I was feeling like, who am I to get up here and share what I'm going through? Like, nobody's really gonna understand, and maybe people here haven't experienced. Like this was like another level of, I think, like hardship in an entrepreneurship and closing a business and having like defaulting on loans and dealing with landlords. Like it was like another level that I'm sure maybe some people haven't been able to relate to, but it wasn't so much that as it was to maybe I just needed validation. Like I felt like a failure, right? I maybe just needed people to say, no, you're still great and it's still great. The concept's still great because I felt like it was all over. Like I can go from 1 to 10. Like
Mm,
the store closes,
yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
company's caving in, it's done. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I had just
Right.
started off and shared, and then I mean, we went around the table, introduced ourselves, and every person who introduced themselves shared what they had been going through, and tears, just tears. Like everybody, it was like 3 hours of us just all crying and oversharing and supporting. What was really magical about it is that nobody around the table felt like they had to like offer any advice or input. Like they were very we were just there to listen. People were just there to listen. If, if people if they felt like they needed to offer advice, they would say like, "Can I share what I'm feeling?" It was just a very natural, organic. Yeah, it was a beautiful event. And so everybody wanted to, when they left, they're like, "When's the next one?" I'm like, I mean, okay, this is a thing. This is a one and done. Okay.
Yeah. Wait, what? No, no.
Yeah.
Oh, but
Yeah.
here we are. So you've built this like beautiful community. I've started to witness the growth on social media with it. So then to build off of that, are you doing reoccurring events? Is it just like an online community? What does it
Yeah,
look
so
like now
they
that
are
it's
in-person
transformed?
events. We've had 5, I wanna say, since it's essentially like every 6-ish weeks. And, we had a December or one in December was a caroling party here at the house where we, like, legit went out and caroled around the neighborhood. It was amazing. It was epic. It was the most, yeah, amazing experience. So it is.
What did that look like? Like you just went door knocking and caroled?
Yeah,
Like
so
what the
I
heck?
had this huge spread at the house. We had about 40 people, and, you were not allowed to touch the food until you've caroled. So, like, you can't get out of caroling, so you show up. One lady was like, "Oh, I didn't think we
Essentially.
were at you like, you were serious. We're gonna actually go out to the neighborhood and carol." I'm like, "Yeah, like, -30, rain or snow, it doesn't matter, we're going out to the neighborhood."
And just like straight face, like
Yeah,
yes. Like the
get your food.
door's there.
I don't have a jacket. I have a jacket. I don't have mitts. I have mitts. Like, "You're not getting out of this. We're going." And we did. We ended up going out for, I wanna say, maybe 40 minutes, and, people did like, I ran up to the door, knocked on the door, went back to our group, and I had binders. I had printed off binders where we all shared where all the songs were in there.
It's giving
Yeah.
Hallmark.
Yeah, and I had candles. I had
Oh,
LED candles, so everybody had a candle and their binders, and then people would answer the door, and we'd just start singing. We were awful. Like, we were for sure awful. We were not good. This was not.
was more Halloween than Christmas, but here we are.
Totally.
My gosh.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
so
that is so, so cool. Do you now feel like that has been like how do you separate yourself from wearing that entrepreneur like business hat because it started as something that you were needing to kind of like recover from a tremendous event that happened with KB and Co. Has it now started to become like another business, another thing that you feel like you need to
a
tackle?
little bit. Yes, a little
Yeah.
bit, but I am going into it with just ease and flow. Like I am
Mm.
not rushing into creating this. It's a real simple throw up an event. It sells out. I hire out for like people come in and prepare the food, and that's essentially what the tickets pay for is food. Like I have not
Right.
profited. I think the Christmas caroling party I lost $36.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I think it's just it's such a low maintenance event or collective that it doesn't it hasn't however, like, I say all that, but I do see there being a big opportunity to create a business and sort of mentorship program through Brave Hearts and potentially membership because the same people keep showing up, and then there's, like, always a waiting list of people that say, like, "I would love to come to this event, like, how do I get in or how do I come?" And I intentionally keep it very intimate at around 30, 35 people. And so they sell it very quick. I I'm sure I could sell it like probably 50 to 75 tickets, but I really feel like it takes away from, we mingle, we visit, yeah, and then
environment.
we sit around comfortably and we just overshare. Like we just share with us.
Mm, yeah,
I've
yeah.
been for the last few events, it's been more around a theme. Our last event that we had in earlier this month was around imposter syndrome. So I had a girlfriend of mine
Mm,
that is a fantastic speaker speak to imposter syndrome, and then we all of us are just sharing the things that we've gone through or why we feel like we have imposter syndrome. Yeah, it's very cool. Could very well be.
that it is so
Yeah,
neat. And I feel like you can see the potential in the value that it brings to the world and to people. So, in like, I think reflecting on it in a broader scale of things, business always in my mind, why I love it so much is because I think it has the power of doing great things. And so when you see something like Brave Hearts Collective have the tremendous impact that it does, naturally you want to be like, let me build this so that it can be something that makes even more greater impact. But can I not feel the negative effects of building it? Which, you know what I mean? When you're a good business, entrepreneurial human being, there's a tendency to like over businessify it
yeah,
kind of thing.
totally. And that's why I think just slow and steady. What are they? Slow and steady wins the race. I don't know. I'm just kind of letting it organically grow and turn into what it will be because it will take a bit of my time if I really pursue it more full time. It obviously will take away a bit of my time, a lot of my time and attention from my actual job. So yeah,
Exactly. Christina, I want to backtrack a little bit. If you're open to it, again, stop me if you feel like you don't want to share on topics, but um, giving a little bit of background into kind of where you grew up, how you grew up, what your like, I guess, adolescence and maybe like 20s kind of looked like before all of this. You know what I mean? How you got to this point in your life. Just a little bit of insight always helps paint bigger pictures as to, some of the reasons why you are the way you are. At least that's how I look
yeah,
at people.
yeah. I definitely know exactly why I am the way that I am. Definitely contributed to childhood life and more so on the traumatic side. So oh, where do you even begin? Well, I'll try to cold notes it, and if you have any other questions around what you know, headlines, then feel free to ask. I'm an open book and happy to share all the experiences. But essentially, from the time I want to say about 11 to 14, I was kind of bouncing around between like foster homes, group homes, couch surfing, being on the streets. I wouldn't say I was homeless, although I mean, I didn't have a home that I would go to, but I would like stay at friends' house, go to a party and crash there at a very early age. From the time I was born until I want to say it was like 7 or 8, my parents, my dad and my mom were together, but a very toxic relationship. My dad, we grew up in the Okanagan. My dad moved to Kelowna. My mom stayed in Penticton. So for
Mm,
those years, 10 and under, I would just go between my dad and my mom's house every now and then. And my mom was like an on and off again Christian slash addict. So it was like certainly not stable. I had younger siblings. I had 8 siblings. So it felt like she was like popping one out every year, every other year for sure. But yeah, I left home when I was 11. And then when I was and through that time I will say like I got into drugs. Nothing in the way that drugs are today. I did acid for the first time when I was 11, and that was just by somebody giving it to me and making me think it was fine, and I had no idea
mm,
what to expect. Not a great experience. But then I would proceed to like do it a few more times at parties. So was, doing drugs and drinking, but never felt addicted or like I needed the drugs or alcohol. But when I was 15, I met a guy who was from Edmonton. I met him in BC, and he was from Edmonton. And now you have to remember, I was like 11 going on 15, and then like 15 going on 20. So when I met this
right.
guy, he was 21, and I know, like, when I think of, like, 21 and 15, like, that's just
Yeah.
messed up, but he was, he was such a stable, like, he was in town for work, and he was a snowboarder, and he, had his CPA, like, he was a quiet, stable, down to earth guy, and those are the kinds of guys that I would, like, be attracted to. Yeah, because I'm like,
Naturally.
oh,
Yeah.
probably given my upbringing. And,
Yeah.
so, we were, like, friends hanging out for about, I don't know, almost a year, and then, like, hanging out, hanging out, and
Yeah.
I ended up getting
Yeah.
pregnant with my oldest, and so, at the time, I really didn't have I mean, I was living in BC, I didn't really have stability, where I was, so I he had, recommended I just come back to Edmonton with him, and we live here, and so that's what I did, I moved back to Edmonton, or to Edmonton, and I dropped out of school. I think I was in grade 9, 10. I had dropped out of school to have my son. And then when I moved to Edmonton, there was a school that had just opened up here called Terra, and it was a school for pregnant teen moms. Yeah,
Oh,
it was
wow.
brand new. It had just opened up. They had a daycare inside the school, so you could bring your child there, finish your education, and then yeah, and it still exists today. Yeah,
Oh my
pretty amazing.
gosh. Huge shout out to them. I am about to do a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah, it was
research. That's
called at the
awesome.
time, it was called Terra at Braemar, and I think it was because it was at the Braemar Elementary School that they had taken over, but now I think it's just called Terra, but great school, great program. Essentially, you're going back to high school. There's a high school setting, and you just drop your kid off down at the wing at the end, and so I went back to school and, had the flexibility, obviously, to do that because, this guy, his name is Eric, he was just so, like, nurturing, like, he was gonna take care of everything, not to stress, not to worry, just do whatever you wanna do, so I went back to school, and, from there, so then I'm, like, 17, 18. I He and I break up, I move back to BC thinking I don't know anybody in Edmonton, that's where my family is.
And that's what I was just gonna ask you if you still sort of felt like roots were in BC. Um, and was that still calling you to go
Yeah,
back
I
there?
think so, just because I didn't have family here. I had no one here at the time, so it just made sense that I go back home. When I ended up going back to BC, I'd learned that I was pregnant with my daughter, um, Eric's child, and so I was in BC pregnant, just like, "I'll just stay here and go back to school here," and, I had enrolled in business administration, and I just thought I'll go to college, and I think I had this like, when I got pregnant with my oldest, I very much just through, like, judgment from other people, mostly family, and I think just people around me, I really was terrified that I would be like my family, or more specifically, like my mother, and, that was motivation for me. So there are 8
Exactly.
siblings, and 6 of the 8, were and are to this day addicts, in my family system, so I get that in some family dynamics, like, it's sort of that, like, repeating cycle, right? Like, you grow up in it and
That's all you
exactly,
know. You don't know what you don't know. And I you can't emphasize that enough. Like,
totally.
you just don't.
Yeah, it's true, and I think leaving the environment that I grew up in was an opportunity for me to kind of experience what life could like, more of a normal-ish life, if you will. So for me, my biggest thing was my motivation was I have to do something with my life. Like, I will never be a welfare case. I will never be my kid will never struggle. I will always provide, like, that sort of mentality. That was sort of my motivation. And so obviously when I got pregnant, like, I didn't have an addictive personality, so I didn't care for the drugs or drinking. For me, it was like I need to, like, be the best. Like, I sort of adapted to this, like, perfectionist mentality.
Would you argue that perhaps not addiction, but that there was something in you almost addicted to the dopamine of it, or addicted to the like something of that, like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes? Or is it just purely because you know you have kids in the world and you're just gonna do whatever it takes to protect them, to take care of them? Like, what, and maybe there isn't an
No,
answer to that.
it was derived from trauma. I think I definitely
Mm.
had like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to prove people wrong. And nobody was well, there were yeah, no, there were a few people that were kind of like, you'll be just like your mom, or you'll likely turn out to be like 15 and pregnant. Like statistically, it doesn't end well.
Odds
Yeah.
are.
And
Yeah.
that was like, I will prove everyone wrong. I definitely wanted to create a really healthy and great lifestyle for my child. But I think the driving, like the first thing was it was to prove everybody wrong. And I knew that it was because I had been judged already about it pregnant so
Mhm.
young. So
Yeah.
I was in overdrive. I was in overdrive
Yeah.
until I was like
Yeah.
30. So I've just
The power that that can have on
oh,
somebody. Yeah.
I wish, yeah, it's I mean, no regrets because it brought me to where I am, but I've been living in fight or flight my entire life and in survival mode. And I just in 2020 embarked on this like yeah, I got into therapy and I went deep because and I avoided therapy my entire life because I thought, why would I want to go back and like bring up all this stuff for what purpose? But it was what had happened to me as a young child or the things that I had gone through was starting to play out in a similar fashion as an adult and like how I was showing up as a wife or a mom or a boss to or like a employer. So I knew that I had it. I had to go back and I had to like talk to little self me, right? Back and deal with that
Yeah.
stuff. That was really, really challenging. And through that I learned that that's when I had learned I had just been living in survival mode. And I was fatigued. I was tired. I don't want to live in that place of like always doing, doing, doing. Very
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a cycle that you can't really pull yourself out of unless you can see from up above it kind of
totally.
thing. When did you when did you take so you went into school, when did you graduate from
Yes.
the
So I
business
never did
admin?
graduate because I met like an older guy, businessman, picture like used car salesman kind of guy who
For sure.
mentioned that I could get an indigenous government grant if I wanted to open my own business, and that there were better opportunities in Alberta than there was in BC. So I had actually moved back to BC to explore what that looked like, and then got back together with my ex father of the my first two children. He was great. He was very complacent, which and I've just always and I was in overdrive. I just had to do all the things and be all the things. So I came back, we got back together just because like why not? Like it was not ideal, but he was all he
There's history there already
yeah,
kind of
we
thing,
were
and
having
yeah.
another child, maybe we could make it work. Um and I was comfortable. So I moved back here and I explored getting into business and franchising because I had no idea like what business would I create. I'm like 19. I don't know what that looks like. So we ended up coming across this franchise called Quiznos, which I think like some of them still exist. And it's funny that I had a Quiznos and now have a plant-based cafe. I think that's like
Yeah, that's true.
it's like
It's complete opposite
totally. And I
end.
was such a big fan and like big rep for Quiznos. I was always so proud that our Angus steak was like Alberta beef, and I just was like, yeah, a funny. I can't even tell you anything about beef today, but yeah, so I ended up buying a Quiznos franchise utilizing a government grant, and got me
Mm,
into and restaurant is always something I felt like it's so chaotic that it just matches matches my whole
totally. Oh, ding, ding,
yeah.
ding.
And that's probably
Absolutely.
why I gravitated towards it because it was just like it's always something, and there's, like, the moving there's always moving parts. Yeah,
Rush.
totally.
Yeah.
So, I did that, and then, I really like, what was next for me? I was like, "Okay, well, this is, like, fine," but I own the store, and I'm super judgy to all the other stores that aren't doing things by the book because 'cause I'm doing things by the book, and I pass my audits every month, like, 99%, like, I'm perfect, perfect. And so the guy that would come in from corporate office out of Toronto, he would come in every month to do these audits in my store, and I would say, like, "How do I get your job? Like, how do I work for a corporate?" And he's like, "You're how old are you?" And I'm like, "Well, what I'm 22, but, like, whatever." And so I would just bug
Yeah.
him all the time, and then we would have these quarterly meetings with, like, Toronto would come down, we'd go to it was always at the Fairmont, all the franchisees from Western Canada would show up at the Fairmont, we'd have these, like, quarterly meetings where they would discuss all things. And so I would, like, make my way over to the VP and just, like, bug him about how do I get a job? Like, hey, I have a franchise here. I'm like really passionate about Quiznos, blah, blah, blah.
And I got 99% of my last
Yeah,
audit, so,
I'm
like, I just
basically
don't
I run a
understand.
perfect store.
So, basically
Yeah,
kinda me, yeah.
totally. And so yeah, they after I think it took about a year of persistence and visual like I knew I was gonna get this job. I just knew. So I would visualize it all the time. I'm like, how am I gonna handle like my store, this job? And yeah, I think like maybe a year later I ended up getting the role, and the role was a director of operations for Western Canada. So I essentially
Oh my
I know, and I'm
gosh.
like 22, 23 years old at the time. So I'm like, just
Holy
think I'm, a really nice salary, all expenses paid, per diems, like just living my best life, traveling a ton. Like they have me, so I was essentially going out to all the stores across Western Canada to do these audits in stores. And with Quiznos, it had to be done once a month. I've been a part of other franchise chains where it's like quarterly, but Quiznos was, they wanted it done once a month. So it meant, I think at the time I had, oh gosh, like 80 some stores, and they were all over Western Canada. So I would fly to Fort Mac like in the morning, go to their store there, leave at 6 p.m., like take the latest flight out, and then go to Grant Prairie the other day, like the next day, and then fly to Calgary and stay like 2 days, do all the stores in Calgary. So I was now traveling a lot, which is like bougie and fun when you're like and you're in hotels and you think you're like just all that. And um but it wears on you. Like it's like the travel and being
Oh,
away.
yeah.
And then they have me opening stores. So now I was a part of when a franchisee buys a store, about 10 days pre-opening, I come out and like set up their entire store, train all of their staff, stay around for a week to make sure they're fine, and then take off. So then I'd be in sometimes, and they'd call me out to Toronto because they were so short-staffed in Toronto. So then I'd be stuck in Toronto for 2 weeks. And I had two kids, and I had a, and I had,
Yeah, I was literally just about to be like, "And but wasn't there 2 humans that you
yeah,
were also
yeah, but
growing?"
they the first thing I was gonna say, they didn't mean a whole lot. You know, I always felt like family is everything, but my need
Yeah,
for getting ahead and proving to Briggs, at the end of the day, I don't even know who the fuck I was proving anything to. Like in
yeah,
hindsight,
no,
I'm like,
no,
who
yeah.
was even watching me? Nobody even cared. No, who I didn't have like I mean, my dad and I have had a very on and mostly on, but on and off relationship when I think like every girl, like, I don't know, seeks their dad's like validation. I know my dad has always been like, he's been in and out of business and I just know that I've always tried to like look for validation, through my dad. So I would, if when I got the role for Quiznos, I was like, look what I'm doing now. And I bought a new
Right.
car. It was like a Corolla XRS. Look at my new car. Like I maybe it was, just my dad. And
Well, but we had said earlier, like, you had explained that you had started all of this journey, this crazy journey into business and proving to whoever and whomever. I think perhaps that seed was just planted and that tree grew, and you didn't even know why it was growing, who it was growing for, but it was growing, and that tree was growing inside of you. And it's like you at some point, and that you obviously have already stopped and realized like what the heck was the energy that was fueling me anymore. Like I already proved to whoever I needed to prove at the start, and then but without taking that step back and stopping and going like, okay, did I prove it enough, or is it just like spiraled into something greater than I even
right.
know?
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I can severely relate to, and probably something that I'm currently going through right now.
Mm.
So like I can 100% understand that, like, who the heck am I even proving it to? I think it's just because it's who you start to get known for, and like you operate at a certain level, so to operate anything less than that is something's just not right there. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
feel right within you. And so it's this like personal battle, but you think it's not personal. It's something that's like outside
Yeah.
of you. And it's such a complex, like kind of abstract thought process, but I can 100% at least see where that whole like mentality was
Yeah.
within you. But I also don't have two kids. So like my brain just goes like, but then
Yeah.
there's that huge component as well that you
Yeah.
were managing. So
Yeah.
I guess when did you start to, yeah, I guess make the transitions and
Well, I
stuff?
had once the travel became like it was just too much. I was gone all the time. I knew that that was becoming too much. The store that I had a manager in place, but that was no manager is as good as you. So I knew that, that was taking a bit of a dive. So I ended up selling the store after having it for almost 5 years and then leaving the company and it had gone
Did you obviously grow it? You obviously
like
grew it?
sales. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was I was, I think, the 7th or 8th store in Edmonton that had opened, so it naturally just did really well in the beginning. As soon as I left, it definitely took a bit of a dip, and it was too hard to recover from when you've been absent for a long time and your regulars don't see you anymore. It just, like, I knew I had to let it go, and I would say I probably just got what I paid and just took a bit
Yeah.
of a
Yeah. But then the experience aspect of it, it's like so hard to put a number on the experience that you learned from something like that, but that is the most expensive part of it all, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
totally. Yeah. So, no, I had wrapped up my time with Quiznos both corporately and with the store and looked for other opportunities in the city that ideally was with a franchise so that I just because it's what I knew. And so I knocked on Booster Juice's door because they were started out in Sherwood Park and their corporate office was here. It
Yeah.
was the only like bigger type franchise that I knew of. So I had applied there for any kind of operations role. Left, followed up with a voicemail that was, like on the lengthier side of all the things I can do and all the things I've done,
Yeah.
persistence, and did get
Thought about picketing on the front door, but,
had
thought maybe
an
not.
address of like the hiring. Yeah, I would have maybe gone to
I'd be
that
there.
extent. Yeah, but I ended up getting the job, needless to say. And it was a franchise business consultant role. So essentially the same thing where you're
Mm.
doing audits and you're helping with new store opens and travel wasn't as much. I wanna say that it was, like, every 2, 3 months that we were doing audits, so there was a lot
Okay.
more flexibility, and, and working remotely mostly because I had kids, so it was really nice to back then to be able to, like, shuffle my time with them and balance my time, but I did that for a couple of years, and then my husband, actually at Booster Juice, he'd been with Booster Juice since day one, and in a director's role, we met,
Wow.
and then my 3rd child have my 3rd child, and I married the guy, and then we both left. We both after he'd been there forever, and, he wanted something different, so we both left to partner with a group who wanted to start a franchise. And so we helped them
Mm.
start it, build it, and then we left that partnership. It was the group that started it was it's a family and like an Italian family and a very old school set in your way kind of family. And I don't think they really understood franchise and my husband and I really
Right.
understand the franchise model and like, you don't go to McDonald's and get, a different burger there than you do at another one. So that was like the biggest challenge and anyway,
Yeah.
different opinions, different thoughts. So we left there and that was he was then unemployed, and I was like, "I'll look for work, I'll find something." I took for almost a year, I took a, kinda like consulting position with the Business Link. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, I was just on their
oh,
website this morning. That
they
is
so
so
they still
weird.
exist.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes,
Amazing,
they
okay.
do. They're a great entity. Yeah, yeah, they're a
Yeah,
great organization.
nonprofit, I think, like, federally, provincially funded. Great organization, so they had a department that they had just created called Aboriginal Business Development Services side. So they had a whole other extension to their already existing programs where we were essentially letting anybody who was Aboriginal coming in or Indigenous coming in through the door. What are their options for financing and grants are typically quite different than the average person coming in. So it was my
Right.
job to kind of, and I had gone through the process, so it was like easy to
Yeah.
speak to in terms of like all the hoops you had to jump through and
Yeah.
requirements and so helping young, indigenous entrepreneurs create business plans and yeah, it was a very yeah, it was very rewarding, but it was also I am somebody like I take no matter if I'm self-employed or I'm working for someone, I like if I work for you, I'm the entrepreneur for you. Like I can't turn it off. I can't go home. Like that's my phone's off. Like I wish I joke sometimes where I'm like, "I should just go get a job," and I'm like, Why go slave away? Because I will for someone else."
100%.
Right? I'm like, I will put
100%.
everything into it. So I was always like, there were some holes, if you will, like the programs were all great, but
Yeah.
they were, most of it consisted of me going into Indigenous communities and sharing all of the things that young entrepreneurs could do to open their business. And what I found, especially when you're out in communities, is that I would always come back and say to my boss, what like, I'm trying to get there. Can we start with social skills? Like,
I'm seeing holes in
yes,
our business plan
like,
here.
I can't go out there and young Sally who's like beating and wants to create a business out of it, who is like struggles with addiction or has trauma, has no idea. First of all, there's a lot of like lack of education, right? Due to, where schools are located and so on. So at the time, I think only 40% of Indigenous kids only got to grade 8 because high schools were typically out of Indigenous communities. For example, Fort McKay was, I think if you want to go to high school, you have to be bussed into Fort McMurray and go to high school. And, parents going to get their kid on the bus at, 6 in the morning. Like it's a commute. So, I'm going into communities where people are not as educated. The social skills are, I had one guy who I was actually helping him with the business plan, and we were going in to meet with the officer that was handling the grant and like the application at the time. And we were walking over to Canada Place, and he said, "Yeah." I said, "Just don't talk. Like, let me talk. Like, let me do the talking." He's like, "Well, I'm gonna tell the guy that my wife was a whore and she took all my money." And I'm like, "Wait,
Yeah, let's hold that
and
one
that one
back.
just, we
Yeah.
can, but no, no,
Tickle my fancy here. Let's just see what happens on
yeah,
the other
I
side.
know." And so there were I felt like too many things like that needed to be addressed. Like, we just shouldn't be giving out money. And there was also, it wasn't just we give you money. There's a process. So, but let's say you go through that entire process and you do end up getting the 100K or whatever it is towards your business. Do you have the ability to manage people? Depending on the business. Like, do you
Exactly.
know how to manage people? Do you know how to manage your books? Do you know what a financial statement is?
Mhm.
And 99% of the people don't and didn't. So I felt like I can't go out and like push like these programs onto people who I think need to do some of this stuff before.
Yeah, long-term
Oh,
success isn't considered. It's like immediate success, and then job here's done. Let them deal with it. When you are just like somebody that's thinking back on all of the things that you saw wrong and didn't
yeah,
vibe well.
totally. So yeah, that was it was short-lived and it was nonprofit. So the pay wasn't, I was carrying a bit of the load for the family at that time. So after a year, I ended up taking on a leasing role for City Center Mall where I was on the landlord side and doing leasing. So retail leasing, which was kind of fun and glamorous. And that's when I was there for 4 years. And that's when I really learned a lot about the landlord side of the business and leasing and how that world works, which like being in it, I remember thinking, oh, I'll just like, okay, here I am. But I get bored very easily and I'll just climb the corporate ladder and like try to just do more and do more. But today, like the knowledge I know about leasing in that world and is like I wouldn't have had that if I didn't have that experience there. So I don't I'm strong believer in what we're going through is like preparing us for something and
Yeah.
it's
So many opportunities to learn, no matter where you are. Like literally, no, even if you're a sales clerk, like no matter, probably actually that's the most important position you can be in to learn the most. I feel like we can get complacent and we can think that we know everything wherever we are, but it really is just a flip of the mindset for you to explore other avenues. And there's a world out there that I feel like we just don't even tap into, and things that we could learn, and people like our colleagues that we could learn from as well. Like I think that there's so many opportunities that people kind of not purposefully, but blinders are just naturally on, and it's your way and it's your life and you're just keeping in your path. But I've always thought that, like, working with different companies and organizations that I've been a part of and seen all the different, like, people that are part of the organizations from all across the world, you can learn so much from these human beings, not even just in the position that you're in, but from their position as well. Because if there's a position that you're interested in pursuing, like you had your eyes set
Totally.
on, go explore that a little bit and see if it's one that you actually might like or one that you know, might
Yeah.
not like.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
anyways, I love hearing stories of transitions and
Yeah.
pivots and like not being afraid to like try different things because I think it can be also very natural for humans to like find a role if it pays the bills, sit on that, even though there's something in them that's like really not being fulfilled. And I find the complete opposite with you and your story. So it's like so crazy
Yeah.
motivational. Um, I'd love to spend some time on how you got into KB and Co. and what like the sort of present kind of looks like for you right now, if you wouldn't
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got so I after my 4 years of leasing, I ended up quitting just kind of out of nowhere. I just knew I had to start KB and Co. I was already towards the end of my position there, creating a lot at home and bringing it into work for people to try. The inspiration behind like eating primarily plant-based food for me was that I was having a lot of gut issues that I couldn't pinpoint, and I see doctors and do all the testing, and I would at the end of the day just be told it was IBS, which you just have to manage through diet. And so for me at that time, eliminating, dairy and meat just were just a trial run. It's what really helped my guts and just eating more plant-based food in general. What I found was that was missing in Edmonton, there were very few little hippy dippy places that were, I will just say vegan. I really don't like using the word vegan. I'm not vegan. So but there were a few little hippy dippy places I like to call them. And I was I was in a corporate industry.
Right.
Yeah. And I would go into these like hippy dippy cafes with like my leather per, I didn't look like a hippie, but I loved hippie food. And
Yeah.
it was a, like, what if there was a place that was more modern looking, but sold hippy dippy food? Like, that was sort of the and then I actually went
Did you know of a place in Toronto or any of
no,
the metro?
I knew
No.
of no place that was doing it, so I actually went to, Scottsdale. We had some friends there at the time. We went and spent a couple weeks there, and then we drove into California, and I spent a week there. I was trying to find a concept that I could franchise, like, buy into, because
Yeah.
I never
Exactly.
started my own business. In Calif there was nothing in Arizona or Scottsdale, I think still to this day, nothing quite like KB and Co. And then in California, there was a concept, it was called Make Out Every Day. I don't it was by Matthew Kenny, who was a pretty more famous, like, vegan plant-based chef in California. And I actually got to meet him and his people when I was in California. I said, "Hey, I might be interested in, like, bringing this concept into Canada, and what would that look like?" So I met with them. They had I forget, Venice, I want to say was where their location was. And it was very modern, but it was like more of a juice. It was raw food in a juice bar. And I
Right.
just
Right.
immediately was like, okay, juices, like I've I've seen that come and go so many times. I'm good. And I was all about eating the fiber too. I'm more of like blend that shit and not
Yeah.
like let all the good stuff go out the back end. And so
Yeah.
it didn't
Yeah.
resonate with me. Raw food, Edmonton, not a chance, especially in 2016. I'm like, not gonna happen. So I came home feeling really defeated. And my husband said, like, given all that you know, like, why don't you just start your own? I was like, oh, I don't think I could. I don't think I could.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Imposter syndrome kicking in. No, what do I know about franchising? He's like, what? I knew I wanted to franchise it, but I was like, we'll start off with one location and see how that goes. And so yeah, I quit my job and was like, I have to do this concept. And that was that's a whole lot. It's a long story, but essentially, my marriage was falling apart because he had gotten a job in real estate, commission only. And I was like, hey, I just quit. And he's like, awesome, but we have no money. And
Cool.
he would
Yeah.
often ask. I actually did apply for jobs, and then I'd get the job and I would decline because I said to my husband, "If I don't I'm gonna go work for this company and I'm gonna be an entrepreneur for them. And if I don't just do this, like, now, I just never will, and so I have to just, like, keep trying to put it together." And so it took me about a year and a half unemployed, and through that time, I was taking courses on meditation to teach it, and then I got certified in Reiki, so I started seeing, like, a few clients, but I couldn't wait until the clients left because I just wanted to make food. I was like, "I need to get back in the kitchen and create,"
Yeah.
and, like, get so I yeah, it was a very
Well, your reading came really fast today. Well, that's all I have for you.
yeah, it's a bit early. No, no, get out, because I have to perfect this sandwich right now, so get out. So, yeah, my children were guinea pigs, bless their hearts, like, trying all the food and perfecting it, and then I
I can't imagine the ingredients being like uberly
no.
cheap that you're using as well. So
I tell
yeah,
you, Briggs, when so racking up the credit cards, we were like max. It was a bad time, and everything I'm paying retail for, and I'm buying like cacao nibs, organic nuts, and I'm like, frick my life. But when I opened my store and was finally able to get a wholesale accounts with all of these, ugh, like to pay, I was so like, oh my gosh, like, and still to this day, I walk in, I'm like, wow, like, I get to work here every day amongst, like, I get, obviously pay less than everybody else. I have this at my fingertips, like, it doesn't get any more incredible than that. So, yeah,
yeah.
it's a nice feeling, but that was sort of, yeah, the journey.
But it didn't start that way. It was a long process. Did you have a runway, if you don't mind me asking? Like, did you have sort of even an idea of like how long it would take you to get to the first opening doors and all of that stuff? Or did you kind of just go like head first? I'm gonna
Yeah,
make it happen. I don't have a runway.
at first, yeah, I needed the biggest thing was capital. It was I had no money. We had no money. We didn't have money to pay our bills. And my husband would often say, like, "Maybe we should find money to pay our credit cards and our EPCOR." And I'm like, "No, I need to find money to open KBs." Yeah, I'm like that. Kids will be fine. Kids will be fine. Oh my God. So yeah,
It's okay.
there was one time I did boil water and throw it in a tub for my youngest, but I'm like, whatever. It's like, well, it's fine,
If that's
but let's get
we're teaching them tradition.
exactly. I'm like, "I've been through much worse. Trust me, they'll be fine. They'll bounce. This is good for them. This is good for them."
Yeah, this is character building.
Exactly. Ride a freaking bus. How's that? Painful. That'll humble your ass for sure. So yeah. No,
Oh,
I had to wait. Yeah, the money piece was the biggest thing, and I had to get super creative. Into as my husband, bless his heart, he was like, "I like love this for you, but I can't really, like, I can't help you, and like, I don't know, I don't really think He was like tired of quick service. He was like, I don't think I have it in me to like really help." And he meant like, and it was vegan essentially. Like at the end of the day, it was vegan in Edmonton, downtown Edmonton. He's like, "I don't know, I worry." And so I just went and got a bunch of credit cards. I just applied online, got some credit cards. I had decent credit, good credit. So I had all these credit cards that I could just max out. And that's what I ended up doing. And I opened the store downtown with 200 bucks, not even 200 bucks because it was like 180. And I remember looking at the staff who were in there helping me get ready to open and thinking, like, I'm all in. Like, I may not,
I am all
all
in.
in. And I don't even have 200 bucks. So I may not even be able to pay you. And so,
How did you deal with that feeling? Did it overwhelm you, or did you again kick in that like overdrive mindset and like, oh no, failure's not an
yeah,
option. I'll
yeah,
show you.
yeah. Well, I think, oh, no, I was terrified. Like, but in looking back, I think that fight or flight, that feeling you have, was my normal. So like I don't know a life where I just don't feel that emotion. I do now,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I didn't back then, and so I was terrified. I was terrified. We weren't making any money. I was barely paying my bills. I was just trying to be positive, and we opened in June, and then by December, I was like, it's not going to work. Like I can't. And I remember over Christmas being in my room, laying on my bed, and being kind of mad at God. I was laying there because I had done so much through that year and a half of like visualizing, and
Mm,
I knew it was going to happen. I knew to my I could see myself handing somebody a smoothie across the counter, so I was like, "What the fuck, God?" Like,
Yeah.
I know through your presence and my knowing that it had to happen, and now I can't pay my rent, and it's all falling apart, and my husband is, like, mad at me because 'cause I'm borrowing for wherever, and, like, why the fuck am I not successful at this? Like, what the hell? Um, I just remember thinking, just not to give up, like, to just keep going. I remember feeling that, like, immediate response, and I then thought back to, like, what oh, I started reminiscing about my affirmations as I would drive to my store, and I would drive there, Briggs, and I would say, "I just wanna pay my bills, God. I just wanna pay my bills." Like, I
Yeah.
don't deserve to make money because I put my family through hell to open it, and I'm doing what I love,
Yeah.
and who else is doing what they fucking love? So I just wanna pay my
Yes.
bills, so please, God, just let me pay my bills. Boom. That's all. You're paying them barely. I had all the credit card debt. I was paying the interest payments, but I wasn't putting a dent into it. And then in December,
Oh,
I was like, "Why am I not visualizing and manifesting, like, affirming that it's time to make money? Like, let's make some money." So my
um,
drive to work every day was like, "I'm in this to make money. I need to make money so that I can pay for my kids' education, so that I can open more
get up from under. Whoa.
pay off the
Yeah, yeah.
debt." Like, I'm
Yeah.
not asking for a new car or a new I'm trying to be humble over here, like, just wanna pay my
Yeah.
pay off debt.
Yeah.
And, I was doing that through to, like, the tail end of December, and I into January, I said to my staff, "Guys, watch out, we're gonna be lined up. Like, we're gonna be so lined up," and they're like, "Oh, okay," like, "She's lost her mind," and I'm like, "Ready for it." And like,
They're like on their phones, like new hiring or hiring for
seriously, they were, like, looking at the clock. I'm like, "Alright, guys, like, 10 more minutes, we're gonna be lined up." And I would say, like, middle to end of January, it just took off. 2017 was probably one of my best years. I net profited 120 grand. The store did $1 million in sales. We were lined up out the door most days. It was the most insane, and that just continued right up until, I
Yeah.
opened Southwest and then, St. Albert, and I feel the effects of it a little bit, but we were still really, like, got me there. It was like that until just COVID, so yeah, that was
I mean, it's so easy to go like, and then just like that, it just grew and grew and grew. But it's like, well, but just like that,
yeah,
25 years later, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you don't, all of the learning opportunities, the experience, the highs, the lows that amounted to that. And I think that that is so often overlooked, like with a lot of our successes in life, we kind of just go like, oh, 6 months ago I started thinking about this and that's why I'm here now. It's like, no, 6 years ago you learned that and then you went through that and then you did that. And I feel like without those lows, bottom of the ocean low, then you don't get to the highs. And not even like you don't get to them, but you don't get to like feel them wholeheartedly. And I think that that is something that is important to note is like I when you are so tremendously, grieving, sad, scared, whatever it is, I think that that only makes the highs even more so incredible, and you hold on to them like white knuckle hold on to them. And I think that's also why personally I love like living a life that's more fulfilling and less about like making profits, if you will. Just like, am I doing things that really do make me feel alive? Like, what is that tangible, like, sorry, intangible, like, concept of feeling alive? What does that mean? It makes, maybe it is you're scared shitless because you don't have the money to pay the bills, but you're alive. And I guess that that's like a sidebar for me, but I think listeners will also be able to kind of pull some relatable things from your story. And because there's a lot of people going through their own kind of conceptualizing business and not even business, but there's a lot in the entertainment industry that listen to this show. And you have to have the grit and determination and belief in yourself like you would an
totally.
entrepreneur. You just
Yep,
have to. So thank you for sharing your journey about KB and Co. As we started the episode, I know that Braveheart Collective is on your mind, and that is just such a wonderful event that you're starting to put together and community that you've built. I will add that as well as KB and Co info at the bottom of the episode. Is there anything else that you feel like you want to share on your story or just with listeners in general? Um, yeah, is there anything else?
I mean, there's I mean, we've just like I've gotten you right to 20 or 2017, 2018, and there's been so much. There's a whole other chapter from like, going through the pandemic and with store closures and all the things and some personal struggles, but the biggest
Do you want to spend time on it?
I
I would love
oh,
to,
I
but I
know, and
don't.
I had to work lunch too. Like, and
That's
I'm
it, I
like, I have
know.
to like, but I,
Yeah.
yeah, always happy to come back another time too. But I do want to just say, like, I think that for me, the biggest thing, faith. Faith is like it is all things and everything. It's really what's helped me get through, all of these challenges. I've closed two stores, well, closed my own store. The Kelowna location was my own store. The Calgary location were franchisees that just picked up and walked away. And that was, that's a nightmare in itself. I guess to kind of answer part of your question, I totally forgot the part of your question about like where is it now? I'm in this like interesting phase where while I would like to continue to grow it, I'm a bit I'm a bit bitter. I'm a bit feeling I feel like, oh, is growing it the right thing? Because I grew it in Calgary and that store had flipped over twice to do two different franchisees who didn't like the business at the end of the day and walked away from it. And that is it's obviously like really detrimental to the brand and cause not great
Right.
doesn't creates a bit of a nightmare on my end legally and so on. So it's definitely made me question people that inquire, go, hey, I'd be a great franchisee. I'm like, oh, would you? I'm scared, right? It's like having like the being
Right.
having an
Yeah.
abusive boyfriend or something. You're just like, guys, forward.
Yeah.
So that's something that I, as a like, today currently feel like I need to work through that. There's a bit of a block there. We also are, we're doing okay, but there are challenges with the stores, right? And inflation is no joke, and the economy is what it is. And we've all had to just, we do the best we can. We can only increase our prices by so much. People are not going to pay maybe $20 for an avocado toast. So we have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
make do.
yeah.
So we're shifting and growing and pivoting, and it does affect my ability to sell a franchise because if I know currently that we're
Right.
not in the best place financially, with all stores and we're all just like working our asses off, it's hard for me to sell this like, yeah, it'll be great. So kind of that's sort of where Kaving Co is. There's a lot of like, what's next? What is the goal? Do we open stores corporately? Do we just focus on what we have right now and stay within Edmonton and area? Um, yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I think about it all like every day and kind of work through that. But
Yeah.
I think like yeah, I think having faith in what you do and what you're going through is the biggest thing. And one thing that I just know to be absolutely true, given everything that I've been through with KB, more so with KB than anything else, that our challenges and hurdles and things that are coming our way or in things that we're going through, it is for us. And if we can shift our mindset to really believing that this is for us and not to us, and to not feel victimized by these circumstances, it is like it almost immediately changes my perspective of like the
Yeah.
situation. When Calgary closed, and for a day sat in the shit because I also think that's important to do as well and not completely dismiss what's coming up for you. But the next day I was like, this was for me. I didn't want these guys in the system. They were awful. They were awful for months. And this is for me. This is for me. This is for me. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden becomes like it's a positive thing. It's a positive thing, and I now with everything that I experience that, I've had the CRAs lock my business account. I'm like, I have had it all. I've seen I yeah, I that was also through creating the Brave Hearts. I had asked some other people at the table my first event, like anybody else like have their business account like shut down by CRA. They're like, oh yeah, yeah. Like the amount of hands that went up because through COVID, it was awful. Like you're behind in GST. Like it's been awful. So it was very validating because, I remember at the time thinking, I really suck at business. Like clearly I can't pay all my bills. I don't know how to,
Right.
I'm really not as financially strong as I thought I was. Oh my gosh, I suck. And to learn that, yeah,
Yeah.
like it's a tough time right now. I mean, I don't know how that serves you positively, but for me actually, well, no, I guess moving forward, I now am more diligent about that kind of stuff and like budget accordingly. So everything is for us, not to us. And if we can adapt to
Yeah.
that, the no's, it's for you. Like just trust that. It is for you and don't
Mm,
get caught up on like that. Just do better if you want to keep moving forward with it. So if it's in the entertainment industry and try again, just keep going until you get a yes, like never give up. That is like,
it is. It's so true. It's such a powerful statement. Your message, your story is so powerful as well. And I invite all listeners to follow your journey. They will find it just as motivational as I. Katie, thank you so,
you're great.
so much for coming on. I really do love everything that you are up to, and sending you all nothing but love, and tremendous success in all pockets of your life. So
Thank
thank you.
you. You're so welcome. It was nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. Okay,
Thanks.
take care.
Bye.
That's a wrap on another episode of Briggs and Co., where we are leaving average for Joe. I hope you all enjoyed that episode. Hopefully, you pulled some inspiration, motivation, maybe a couple hacks, tools, and tricks along the way. If you liked the episode, please give it a share with friends and family, just out into the universe. I would really appreciate it because that's the only way this show will grow. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations on guests that I should bring on, please message me at Briggs underscore and underscore co underscore, or send me an email, admin@briggsandco.ca. So much love to you all. Take care of yourselves. Ciao for now.